just dumped my coffee all over myself.
Is this on?
So, I have been so excited to make this video. It is my favorite books that I've read in 2025. I've read almost 40 so far. I'm still reading a couple this week and it's almost the end of the year. But I've read some really good books and I am excited to share them with you. So, first of all, I want to share that I started the year, January 1st, reading Christy, which I had watched the show growing up. It's a show. Didn't know it was a book. Didn't know it was a true story. So this is the daughter, Catherine Marshall is the daughter of Christy. Christy is a teacher who is maybe 18 or 19, goes into a very poor area, and it's crazy. As a teacher reading this book, the stuff that she experienced is crazy. And then there was a whole chunk of the book that was just about a season where typhoid ran through the whole town, like everyone was getting sick with typhoid. And I had never, am I pronouncing that right? Mm-hmm. I had never experienced that. And in this book, I feel like I did. It took 6 weeks of them constantly caring for one person. And if you didn't have anyone to take care of you for 6 weeks straight, you died. And then some people died after because something about the stomach lining, if you ate solid food, even though you were super hungry, after 6 weeks, if you ate solid food, your stomach could bleed and you would die. It was the craziest story. And so I'm taking this with me to Christmas because I'm going to have my brother-in-law read this. He's a doctor, and I thought he just needs to read that section about typhoid because I felt like I experienced it, and it was really good. So this is one of my favorite books I read this year, and again, it was the first book I read this year. So that's kind of fun. Started the year off strong. Summer is always the best time for books to come out, and some of my favorite authors, they come to my town and I get to go see them. Catherine Center wasn't the first author that came this summer, but she was certainly my favorite. She always is. This was the second year I got to go see her speak. She's dynamic and her books are always just so much fun. I know I'm gonna love them. I give myself a day to read them because I know it's gonna be one day that I just wanna sit and read these. The Love Haters, it was one of my favorites that she's written. I have almost all of her books now and I can reread them over and over. I know that nothing terrible is gonna happen. I know it's gonna make me happy. The banter back and forth, the conversation between the guy and the girl, it's so good. She's a really good writer and she's a really fun person. So definitely loved this one and I will go see her again in 2026. But I'll tell you about that later, I'm sure. And I will link below when we went to see her, my friends and I. We had t-shirts made that say, I'd rather be reading Catherine Center. It was really fun. I read Carly Fortune this year. I've read her in the past. Very good book. It's actually not my favorite of the books that she's written, but that's not saying it wasn't amazing because she's such a good writer. I feel the setting of her books. I also got to go see her speak in my town, and she talked about how setting is what drives her stories, and I could totally tell because when I read her stories, I feel like I'm there. Even though this wasn't one of my favorites, it was still so good I can remember the scenes in my mind. My favorite of hers, though, is This Summer Will Be Different. I just love the story. It's her friend's brother that she's in love with, and she goes to their house in the summer. They live in Prince Edward Island, and that's where Anne of Green Gables takes place. So there's a lot of references to Anne of Green Gables, which we read in my 7th grade English class, and I just love that book so much. This is a companion novel to her very first book, which was so fantastic. I had never read anything like it, and that was Every Summer After, about friends growing up at the lake. It was so good, and this is about the brother. It was really good. I have not seen Abby Jimenez speak yet, but this was one of my favorite books of the year. Say You'll Remember Me. It was such a sweet story, and what I remember most about it is that there wasn't a silly misunderstanding. A lot of times books have some stupid misunderstanding and you're thinking if the characters just communicated, they could figure this out. I don't remember there being anything like that in here, and I just remember thinking this is the easiest, most fun read, and I think this was the first book I read of the summer. It was good. I will be reading it again. And it was about a dog was in it, and a cat or something. I think there's animals in it. I like animals. I saw this on a couple of my favorite YouTubers channels that they had read this, The Academy. I had seen it at the store. I thought, you know what, I'm just gonna go buy it. And I'm so glad I did buy it because I wrote in it such good quotes, Such good writing. The story blew my mind and I just couldn't put it down. It was so good. I will read it again. And it does kind of leave you with a cliffhanger a little bit. It doesn't solve all of the problems, but it was so good and satisfying at the end. It didn't matter. And I'm just hoping that there's a sequel to find out what happens next. But it wasn't one of those things where you're like, I just wasted my time reading that, because it doesn't end. It does end. It does stand alone, but there's something that's not finished at the end, and hopefully they come out with a sequel. It was such good writing, lots of different perspectives, and just a crazy story. I could not put this down. Another book that I don't have with me because it's at my school that I read this year for the first time was The Giver. Now I maybe I read it when I was in high school or middle school. I don't remember. I feel like I would remember that book. It was so good. My daughter read it in her 8th grade lit class, and then my son read it because he wanted to try it, and he read all 4 of them like in a weekend. I read it and I loved the story so much. Couldn't put it down. Then my dad read it. We've all just been reading it. It's so good. I highly recommend The Giver by Lois Lowry. I just finished this book today, The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. I've never read anything like it because I don't read a lot of mystery, but I feel like I should. I just don't love murder mystery, and that's mostly what I see out there. So I don't usually pick these up. This was delightful and so well written. So I do think this was one of my favorites of the year. And it usually takes me a while to decide that it was, because I have to reflect on it. Because any book I'm reading that's good is my favorite book of all time. And I have to give myself a couple days to decide, was it though, or was I just caught up in the moment? So I do think this is gonna make the list. Another book that I read that I just loved the story so much, and I wish I owned it, but I got it from the library, was The Other Side of Now by Paige Harbison. It was so good. The story was crazy. It was like an alternate universe story. So she starts off in this life that she's famous and it kind of stinks, and then she goes to this place that she wished she'd always gone right after college, or for college. She wished she'd always gone to this place in Ireland. Well, when she gets there, it's an alternate universe of if she had gone to that place in Ireland. And the craziest part, in the life where she's famous, there's something that happened that is really sad. But in this other part of her, this other universe, it didn't. And it's just was fascinating. I loved it so much. I love stories like that. So that's one of my favorites of the year. Another one that I got from the library, again, I wish I owned it, was Mrs. Quinn's Rise to Fame. And that was by Olivia Ford. It was the sweetest story about an old lady who pretty much joins the British baking show, but it was called something else. And it's her story of every week preparing for the baking show, the people that she meets. And it was just the sweetest story of this lady and this second chance for an adventure in her life, like this, even though she was old, and it was so sweet. Another book that I read that I loved this year, and I also got to see her in my town. She came through to our library. It's a love story by Annabelle Monaghan. Great summer story. It was really fun. Something that she said when we went to see her speak, and it's also one of my favorite quotes in the book, was that romance happens over dinner, love happens over breakfast. There were scenes in this story where this big family comes together for breakfast and lunches, and like they're all there, this big family, and the parents have this great relationship, and they talk about how, you know, you can be all romantic at these dates, but really love is what happens over breakfast, you know, in the morning when all of the feelings are gone and you're just enjoying coffee and breakfast together. And last, I will leave you with my favorite devotional of the year, and it is Jesus with a Side of Coffee. And this was written by my niece, Whitney Tanksley. I actually got to help edit this book, which I felt so honored to be able to do. And she's so honest and her writing is so beautiful. It's such a good book to read on a daily basis. It would take, I think there's about 30 life-giving devotionals for women who are on a journey with God. We got to go to her book launch party. I'll link that video below because it was really cool. Whitney offers busy women fast devotionals about everyday life that will refuel you to live the life God has called you to. So really nice devotional that I enjoyed reading this year. I will link this below.
That was so nice.
Thanks. It's really hard again for me to pick my top books, but these are them. These are the books that I really enjoyed this year. And if I had to pick my absolute favorite of the whole year, I would pick The Love Haters by Catherine Center. This book was just so sweet and good, and I loved it so much. If I had to pick a runner-up, it would be The Academy. Nope, The Other Side of Now. I don't know, both of those were runners-up. So good. I was just completely enthralled in the story. Okay, so my next video I'm going to make is what I'm going to be reading in 2026, and I'm really excited to share that too. Okay, happy reading. I hope that you get some good recommendations from this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
No, I didn't.